Hello, my name is Heather Butts with Health for Youth, and today we are going to do Module 6, Lesson 1, in preparation of the Health for Youth Lehrer Prize for Community Well-Being Summer Incubator, our public health incubator. So this is Module 6, Lesson 1. And you should see this shared at this point. I will to large screen and we are we're off. So this module is an ode to Juneteenth, which is June 19th, 2021 for this year. And what we will do is a module looking at the Civil War, public health, and the fight for equality. So first, what we'll talk about a little bit is just an overview of some of the trauma that Civil War soldiers and Civil War healthcare workers found themselves in during the war. And to understand a little bit about that, you just have to understand a little about what post-traumatic stress is. And basically that is a case where someone has experienced something that is life-threatening. Military combat is obviously a very good example, natural disasters. COVID-19 is a great example. And out of that, they can relive the experience, have difficulty sleeping, feel detached from themselves. These are just some of the symptoms that people can feel. Uh, During the Civil War, trauma manifests itself in a variety of terms, including homesickness and nostalgia. And we see a lot of similarities in trauma as we think about it today to some of these terms. You might be asking yourself, why are we talking about this? What does this have to do with any of this? Well, one of the things it has to do with is, in thinking about the legacy of the Civil War, oftentimes we sort of brush over how traumatic that continued to be for people after the war. And even as we signify dates such as Juneteenth, we have to think about the aftermath of the war and how it impacted people. And for a lot of people who were primarily traumatized or secondarily traumatized or intergenerationally traumatized, the legacy of the Civil War lived and lives on for them. Now, soldier's life, a medical picture for soldiers. Walt Whitman, who some of you may have heard of, was a nurse during the Civil War and in Washington, D.C. And he spoke quite eloquently about his thoughts regarding soldiers during the war and specifically Black troops. Clara Barton, someone else who many of you may have heard of, spoke about concern for her patients. Also, Louisa May Alcott, who wrote the book Little Women, she was a nurse during the Civil War and spoke about regiments that she saw and the admiration with which she viewed them. Soldiers' lives, challenges during the Civil War. Well, some of these challenges were multifaceted: physical illness, loneliness, boredom, fear, lack of hygiene. These were all challenges that soldiers faced. This is a letter that was written to President Lincoln. I'm a widow left with only these two sons, who have both left me to fight for the good cause, and I am proud to send them forth, although they leave me desolate and heartbroken. So, a mother speaking about the loneliness and despair that she had because uh, both of her sons were off to the war and she was a widow. Um, so, one of the heroes of our story is Dr. Alexander Augusta. And during the course of our project with Lehrer Prize, you'll hear a lot more about him. But essentially, he was born in Norfolk, Virginia in March 8th, 1825, moved to Baltimore, began studying medicine with private tutors, and attempted to get into the University of Pennsylvania, did not get in, and ended up marrying his wife and moving to Canada. He studied in Toronto and received his Bachelor of Medicine degree. He and his wife had a very successful life living in Toronto. And it wouldn't be until the Emancipation Proclamation that Dr. Augusta contacted President Abraham Lincoln to obtain an appointment as a physician within the Union Army. On April 14, 1863, Augusta was granted a surgeon's commission. So he was a commissioned officer within the Union Army, and he served throughout the war once he received his commission. It's an interesting story that's told about Dr. Augusta beginning his life in DC, about an incident on a trolley car where he was attempting to gain access to a trolley car and was denied access and was late for a court-martial hearing. This is a letter in his own handwriting, which is very neat, by the way. From a historical perspective, it's interesting to see a letter like this, but it documents the journey or the lack of journey that he had with respect to the trolley cars. This letter was read into the Congressional Globe, and a resolution barring streetcar discrimination was passed in March 1865. So Dr. Augusta was one of the true champions of equality over 150 years ago. In the mid-1860s, Dr. Augusta was put in charge of Freedmen's Hospital, and after the war, he became a faculty member at Howard University. He served there from the 1860s through 1870s, and accounts note that he was appointed a full faculty member at Howard University in the late 1860s. In 1877, he resigned from Howard, returned to private practice, and was awarded several honorary degrees from Howard University for his service and his work. It's a really, really interesting story about Dr. Anderson Abbott and Dr. Augusta on a visit to the White House. And it basically just shows some of the trials that individuals such as Dr. Augusta and Dr. Abbott had to go through in order to be able to serve their country and to serve their patients. I'll give you a moment to read it. It's worth it. Okay. Augusta and medical societies. So he he was always trying to join the societies that were in existence. So he was trying to do that, but he invariably seemed to be stopped. And never daunted, he decided to start his own medical society. All right, so these are two books that I have written. One is entitled African American Medicine in Washington, D.C. The second is Healing Civil War Veterans in New York and Washington, D.C. And I will be making sure that you have the assignments that go along with this module in our Google Classroom. So please stay tuned for that. And I look forward to our next module and lesson next week. Thank you. Bye.